All right, there you go. There's the music. That means it's time for Animal Talk. Some of the best doggone pet people on the planet. Today, we're talking about dogs. We're talking about cats living together. It's chaos. But first, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and following. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all those podcasty things that you should do when you're listening to a podcast. We truly appreciate people taking the time, spending some time with us. Always check the show notes below as the podcasts go live, because there's always great links in there to the wonderful, amazing people we talk to, the amazing organizations that do some astounding work that could always use some help. So the links are always down there for you. Like today, another amazing group out of Texas, and we're talking to Stacy Sutton Kerby. Stacy, we're going to bring you in here and tell you, hi, welcome to Animal Talk.
Hey, Jamie, great to be here. Thank you.
So, Stacy, you are out of Texas.
That is correct.
It's very much a political group that you work with. What's the exact acronym again?
Yeah, we're the Texas Humane Legislation Network. We are a 45-year-old nonprofit that focuses exclusively on policy and legislation to protect animals from abuse and cruelty. And we like to promote what is good for Texans and their animals.
So, Stacy, because we kind of crossed paths. We had just done an interview with Marty Irby from Animal Wellness. We've talked to Marty several times about horses, about burros, about wolves, about dogs, about horses again. And this time we were talking to Marty about the big cat legislation going on. And as rumor has it that Texas has more cats, big cats, like tigers and the like, than there are in their natural habitat.
You're right, Jamie. And we have to rely on rumor, because the truth is we don't actually really know how many privately owned big cats exist in people's private homes in Texas. We know we have a problem with it. We know that these big cats can escape their enclosures. They can threaten public safety. And it's really a problem for our first responders, who are, valiant public servants, but who aren't necessarily trained and equipped to go out and round up tigers.
Oh, hey, let's take on a mountain lion today. It's like,
right.
It's a little crazy. Before we get into the actual pieces of legislation that you've been working on, and then I know there's one about dogs. Stacy, tell me about your childhood.
About my childhood? Yeah, well, I was an Army brat. My dad was in the military for 22 years, and we bounced around quite a bit. And, one thing I can tell you, I think a lot of people have that real strong attachment to their pet when they're young. And I had a dog that moved with us from Army base to Army base and from state to state, and even went overseas with us. And he actually comes to mind when I think about the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, because there were times when we lived in communities when we had to keep him on a chain if he was outside. And I think about him often. And anyways, I think being an Army brat probably imprinted on my personality, hopefully in some good ways.
Yeah.
But I've called Texas home since 1989.
Oh, excellent. So I wish my co-host Matt was here, because he too was an Army brat traveling around. He was in Alaska and Washington D.C. and every place in between. So yeah, we familiar with that. And I was curious about pets in your life, and what brought you to this animal activism and working for the group here in Texas.
Yeah, I actually started out as a child welfare advocate. I had some training as a court-appointed special advocate to volunteer with kids who were placed in foster care. And then later I became a foster parent. And one of the things I started to learn is that family violence is often a place where not just people are being harmed and threatened, but animals are being harmed and threatened. And they are often used by abusers as tools to control and intimidate their victims. And the more I learned about that intersection, the more I was drawn into this work. We know that kids that are exposed to that kind of thing when they're young, they're at much higher risk of repeating the cycle and perpetuating that. And so when I came over to the Texas Humane Legislation Network, moving from my background as a paralegal and a child welfare volunteer over into doing lobbying for animals as a profession, I felt like that really kind of gave me a real grasp of how, when we are working to protect the pets that are in people's homes or people's communities, oftentimes that also means that we are helping make people safer as well.
Awesome. See, I love that. And I got a passion for the pets, and they should be well cared for, and used as a tool by abusers. I haven't even thought of that. That's unnerving. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So, Stacy, you guys were sharing your voice and lending your voice. The Texas Humane Legislation Network was helping out Marty and Carole Baskin when they were in Washington, trying to be heard about it's the Big Cat Public Safety Act, and it's progressing along well, better than most things go. So, it seems it's knock on wood, things are working smoothly in Washington, which you don't hear that sentence very often. What is the law in Texas? It's because there's a lot of cats there, and from what I understand, there's like 3 states where there aren't local legislations against owning big exotic cats. So where does Texas stand on its own legislation with the big cats?
Sure. So in Texas statute, there is the option for counties to regulate the ownership and keeping of dangerous wild animals, including big cats. But it's not mandated by the state. That is, it's not a statewide regulation. Texas has 254 counties, and each of those counties has the option to pass an ordinance in their county which would regulate or prohibit having those big cats. And what that means is that oversight, regulation, writing any citations, that kind of thing, devolves down to the local level. It lands basically on the sheriff's plate, the county officials. And we know from working with law enforcement that this puts them in a really untenable situation. Apart from the fact that, if you cross the county line, the law might be different with regard to the ownership of big cats. There's not a central registry. We don't know where all of those big cats are. So in Texas, in particular, because we have such a large population, at least in terms of the ones that we know are in various roadside zoos and various facilities, and because there's always the fear that there's a lot more out there that we don't know of, and we only find out when they escape and they have to be rounded up by the sheriff, and that happened 3 times in the first 3 months of 2021. We believe that it would be much better to phase out the private ownership of these big cats, to stem the flow of continually breeding them to go into private hands, and then to know where they're located, so that if there is a problem, for example, we just had a tornado touchdown about 10 miles north of my house yesterday, that first responders know where those animals are. They can keep the public safe. And if the enclosure where the animal is kept is compromised, they can be aware of what's going on in that area.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. So Texas, you have big weather, big crazy things happen. You don't think of Texas as a cold space. You think of Texas, it's hot, arid, but Texas is as big as Texas, and you have various climates. But just I guess it was it 2 years ago now, or 1 year ago, you guys had a very severe winter in parts of Texas that have never seen it before. And that's part of what the Safe Outdoor Dog Act is about. But are there parts of Texas that regularly get very, very cold. We're in Detroit. So here in the Midwest, we rock it down to 0 and below every winter, so
Yeah.
we're accustomed to having to deal with that and hopefully treat our pets well through that. But is that an anomaly in Texas?
Actually, we do have some parts of Texas that regularly experience freezing winters and ice. The Texas Panhandle is notorious for ice storms late into the spring, and Northeast Texas regularly dips down into those below freezing temperatures. So the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act was really important in taking a step forward, obligating owners, if you're going to keep your dog outdoors, you must provide them adequate shelter and protection from the extreme weather. As you mentioned, people often think of Texas as a little more tropical or maybe even a little more arid, like a desert. Well, we have tornadoes, we have hurricanes, we have extreme heat waves, all of that. And our dogs just really needed a clear law that gave owners a blueprint. Here's what you need to do to keep your dog safe if they're tethered unattended outdoors, and gave law enforcement and animal control a real good blueprint to go by so that they could clearly point out when someone was in violation.
So are there not enough? Because I'm not laws, right? We got enough laws in our life. Do we need more laws, right? So why is this law necessary? What is there is lacking that you need this law?
Yeah, we needed it because the Texas Health and Safety Code just had too many loopholes in it. And because of those loopholes, dogs were dying at the ends of their chains. And we haven't found a Texan yet who believes in cruelty or believes that's correct. But because it wasn't clearly defined in statute, it was unenforceable. And another big loophole at the time, before we passed the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, was that there was an automatic waiting period. If an officer came upon a dog in distress, even if it was pretty clear that dog's not going to be able to make it through the night if they aren't brought inside or given adequate shelter. The previous Texas Health and Safety Code required a 24-hour waiting period. And as you mentioned, Jamie, we had that really bad storm in February of 2021, and our organization received hundreds of messages from people who were so distressed and so upset. My neighbor has a dog. The dog is outside. That dog is not going to make it through the night. And, that was just such a wake-up call to so many people at the legislature that, yes, we needed to do a lot of things to protect people and to make sure that, we are all able to take care of each other in our communities, and that we needed to clean up these loopholes in the law so that our outdoor dogs could be made safe as well.
Wow. All right. So that is problematic with the waiting period for the police to take action. I know I have friends that are, huge animal advocates, and they have rescued dogs. They've just gone and stolen dogs. Not that we would never advocate for that. But they were just because they had an owner that just glaringly irresponsible, and they wouldn't do anything. And in Detroit, we have some trouble. There's a lot of like big, powerful dogs. People around love the big, powerful dogs. And those big, powerful dogs need big, powerful chains. If you want to keep them from just busting them and running. But the bad thing is they'll take just a chain, like literally just a chain with a padlock, and they'll put the chain around the dog so they can padlock it. And it's like, and they got those big monster skulls, and they can't get the thing over their head. And so these dogs are literally, padlocked with this heavy chain, and then they're out there, and then depending on whether or not they have the proper shelter or not, it's it's quite the challenge to rescue these dogs or to approach them when they do need help. A
dog continuously chained in that situation with a heavy chain around their neck, not getting adequate socialization, and not being restrained in a way that is safe for that dog,
right.
That is a tragedy waiting to happen. Because if that dog does happen to break their restraint, or if a child should accidentally think that this dog is as friendly as their pet at home. As I said, that's a tragedy waiting to happen. Unfortunately, we had a number of maulings of children here in Texas, and our group did a lot of research on this. The CDC put out a statement that chaining a dog continuously is never recommended. And, dogs, everybody who's listening to this knows, highly social creatures.
Yeah.
And, we get it. There are big dogs, there are strong dogs, but there are safer ways to make sure that that dog is contained and restrained than staking them out on a chain, putting a padlock on their chain, and then ignoring them. That's just a recipe for disaster.
So you had some success, if I'm not mistaken, with some legislation about puppies and about puppy welfare just very recently, yes?
That's right. House Bill 1818 did really well in passing the House and almost got through the Senate. We ran out of time at the end of the legislative session. We call it a success in that it was something of a surprise bill. It really had wings, and it was bipartisan, and it was constituent driven. And like I said earlier, I haven't met a Texan yet who believes in cruelty once they see what a puppy mill is all about and what the products of the puppy mill suffer through before they end up in a retail pet shop, for example. We just found that policy really had a lot of support down at the legislature. Now, that was the bill that was in 2021. Back in 2011, the Texas Humane Legislation Network worked to pass the very first regulation of the large-scale commercial breeders in Texas. So that's the production end of what we call what is colloquially referred to as a puppy mill pipeline. And that pipeline is outside of Texas as well. There are a number of notorious Midwest puppy mills that supply chain retail pet stores across the nation. Unfortunately, consumers usually don't know where these puppies are sourced from. They don't know the conditions. If they did, very often people who have unfortunately bought a sick or defective pet that came from a puppy mill, they've told me if I had known that, I never would have purchased that pet. So yes, we've worked on both ends of that issue. We're going to continue the fight. We know that there's more to do. We're glad that we have regulation in Texas for large-scale commercial breeders, but we feel like there's more to be done at both the production end as well as the retail end to keep dogs and puppies and the consumers who purchase those animals, to keep everybody safe and healthy and no surprises.
So I wasn't exactly sure what that bill was focused on, and that's great. So more on the puppy mills, but the Dog Safety Act, did it pass? Is it going into effect?
The Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that one passed in October and went into effect January 18th, and we have been super busy and super excited and glad that we've been working with community groups. I've been working with a group of Marble Falls. Marble Falls is a community not far from me in the Hill Country. Teenagers, high schoolers are building dog houses to donate to dog owners in need in their local community. We've attended meetings with law enforcement and animal control, answering lots of questions, and you just find so much excitement in the room when people realize, like, wow, we can do so much to help with implementation. Aside from just writing people tickets, we can help educate people about what their dogs need to be safe. My favorite saying comes from the director of the Texas Animal Control Association, a fellow we like a whole lot, Jamie Cantrell. He says, the first knock is education. He said, I never want to walk up and write somebody a ticket and have to cart their dog away. That's the last thing I want to have to do. I just want the dog and the people that they live with and the people that encounter them to be safe.
Absolutely. So are there, because here in Michigan, hunting is a big, it's like a recreational industry, and then people, some people use it as an industry, and hunting is big, and working dogs are big in Michigan, and a lot of times working dogs like that are housed differently and kept differently than your typical pet. Are there exceptions to the laws for working dogs, hunting dogs? Is there something about that in there?
Absolutely. Exceptions for hunting, for participating in agriculture, for doing field trials, for camping, even for being restrained in the back of a parked open air pickup truck while someone performs a temporary task. You know, we recognize that Texans work with their dogs. They enjoy outdoor activities with their dogs. So the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act balances the rights of Texans to enjoy being outdoors and doing fun stuff with their, or doing work with their dogs, balances that against the need to protect the public and to protect dogs against the dangers of continuous unattended tethering.
All right, well, good. I was curious about that aspect of it. So we kind of glanced over the big cat Public Safety Act, and that was more of that's a national piece of legislation. So the Texas Humane Legislation Network, you work on bills at both levels, at the state level and the federal level, or do you focus more on Texas and the local government?
We do work on bills at the federal level that affect Texans and animals in Texas. We do spend most of our time and energy at the state capitol when it's in session. Texas only has a legislative session every other year in the odd numbered years, 140 days. So it's both a sprint and a marathon. It's super tough
Yeah,
to get a bill passed. And we also help out at the local level. We've been working with local folks who've wanted to pass ordinances to regulate the sales of commercially bred dogs in pet stores, or who wanted to pass stronger tethering bills at the local level. So, you know, we do work on the federal level and we do work at the local level. Most of our work has been at the state level, but you know, when we see good policy that can have a good impact, we do what we do to help get that pushed past the finish line.
So I liked what you said about education, and the guy from the Humane Society said that he always wants that first knock to be about education. Tell me a little bit about the Texas Humane Legislation Network, and because it seems like you try to do some educating and helping with resources with your website. So when people go to your website, what is it? It's THLN.org.
That's correct.
So when people go there, what are they going to find, and what kind of resources will they be able to access?
Sure. In particular, for the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, we have a whole landing page dedicated to that. And the resources there are listings of local groups that help under-resourced dog owners with things like application for fencing assistance, application for doghouse donation, other types of pet supplies that went for people in need. As I mentioned, there was a tornado that touched down up in Round Rock yesterday, and I immediately got some calls. Hey, what can we do for pet owners who might find themselves displaced or needing to put their pet in the shelter? But back to Safe Outdoor Dogs Act. On that page, there's also videos about how to purchase an alternative to a chain, a cable tie-out, which is specifically manufactured to be attached to a dog's harness or collar. There are also bilingual flyers that detail in layman's language, instead of, you know, in the somewhat can be difficult to read language that statutes are written in just plain English. What does the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act do? So that's a good landing page at our website. It's called a Brand New Day, and describes the law that just went into effect January 18th. All over our website, free webinars, information about laws that have already passed, and then a look forward to the initiatives that we're working on coming up in the 2023 Texas legislative session.
All right, yeah. So what is the biggest thing you're going to try to accomplish? What will be the best get for 2023?
The best get would be that Texas school children would have access to humane education, that is learning about empathy and kindness towards animals, and safe interactions with pets and proper treatment of pets. We're a state of 30 million people, and I think it's 7 out of 10 homes have pets in them. That was the latest statistic that I read. So that's a whole lot of pets. That's a whole lot of animals. And we know from our work with stakeholders such as educators, veterinarians, shelter directors, we know that they're telling us, A, humane education really has an impact on elementary school children, and B, we really need it. We, as a state, unfortunately lead the nation in euthanizing homeless animals. So we really need to do everything we can to help educate our communities about how to be a responsible pet owner and what we can do to get on top of our homeless pet population issues. As well as really just teaching kids from the get-go, animals, they're in so many ways, they're like us. They need food, they need water, they need adequate shelter. So that would be our big get. We're going to continue in that vein always to educate. We've been working on it for 45 years now. It's literally our middle name, Legislation, Education, and Advocacy. But this time around, we're really exploring how we might get that into statewide curriculum.
Well, it's the thing that it's COVID. It's so many awful things. But one of the positives, because kids are stressed. I teach high school during the in one of my many lives. I'm a high school teacher, and kids are stressed.
Bless you. I have high schoolers.
Thank you. Yeah, and so it's after being I'm not sure what things were like in Texas, but in Michigan, it was 2 years ago last week. Sent everybody home on Friday and said, all right, see you after spring break. And it was like 2 years later before things were normal and close to normal again. So kids are stressed about that. And so what we've been doing is just bringing in dogs. Serenity pets. The local, dog shelter and the people that visit hospitals and elder care. They're bringing the dogs into the high schools and to the middle and the elementaries. And it's just people get a little puppy time, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's like maybe there'd be something combined with that sort of, because people are trying to find ways to support kids mentally and emotionally right now. So maybe you could dovetail on that a little bit with that. So
you've hit the nail on the head, Jamie. There is research that shows that when animals are the subject, when animals are the topic, kids are enthralled, and it's reflected in their reading comprehension and their testing scores later, as well as improving their pro-social attitudes. And so, to get on top of this learning loss, which I hear you, brother, I suddenly in the spring of 2020 became, mom and employee and school teacher, and boy, howdy, that was like way too much on my plate. And, I recognize that wow, virtual learning is the best we could do in this moment, but we had to drop into that super fast. And I certainly don't, have the experience that you do as a high school teacher. And so even with my own kids, I know that there was not only the learning loss, but then also the social, emotional learning loss that happened from not, being with their peers and learning how to get along. So we've seen these positive effects of humane education that just happen in so many ways for kids. And I haven't bumped into anybody yet, particularly an educator, who thought it was a bad idea. They said, oh my gosh, we're hungry for this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, Stacy, thank you so much. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about?
I just want folks to know that it is really doable to get engaged with your elected officials, whether it's at the local level and you want your city council person to know that you vote for humane officials and for humane policies, whether it's at the state legislature and you want to get involved in passing laws to protect pets and the people they encounter from abuse and cruelty, or whether it's letting your federal officials know. It's totally doable. And we break it down and make it really simple and easy for folks to do that. And they find that it's super gratifying when their voice is actually heard and that bill gets passed. When it gets signed by the governor or when it actually passes at the federal level, you can really, feel a lot of satisfaction that you did something to protect the animals that you love and the people that will encounter them. And I got to tell you, I have a great job, but I want everybody to know anybody can learn to lobby for animals. And if you don't believe me, email me or call me, and I'll help you out.
So the website again?
www.thln.org. That's over on the legislation side.
Are there widgets and things that people can find their legislators and find the things that you're advocating for right now fairly easily?
Oh, sure. Well, for Texas, I have a tool that works really well. If you're out of state in other places, I may have to help you find your legislator, but it wouldn't be that hard. And I think, for those who really want to get engaged, that we could do some Google searching together. But there's lots of materials that you don't have to be a Texan to learn from on our website. There's webinars, and you can also go over to our Texas Humane Network.org, the education and training side. There's a humane library list there. Lots of great books for kids to read. Just lots of materials there. So check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I can't even keep up with all of our.
You got your TikTok going. You got your TikTok.
I'm learning TikTok. I'm learning. I'm learning.
I refuse. And because I do the yearbook newspaper broadcast. So, so every time there's a new social media thing, I'm like, oh, come on. And my kid's like, oh, we got to get TikTok going. And I'm like, no, we don't. And half of that stuff is blocked at school anyway.
Oh, right.
Instagram is, the one thing that not blocked is Facebook. It's like, well, I get to talk to your moms. The kids aren't on the Facebook. The moms are on the Facebook. So moms know what's going on, but the kids, they're, snapping the chats and ticking the talk. And I just sound like a middle-aged old man when I do that. I know better. But so all the socials are there. Plus, people can donate through the website if they want to help support your causes as well.
That's right. 100% of what we receive goes towards passing humane legislation in Texas. So we're very appreciative, obviously, of all the support that we get. Very appreciative of being able to spend time with you, Jamie, and educate your listeners about what we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. And again, check the links. It'll all be linked in the descriptions of the videos and the audio podcasts when it comes out. And subscribe, leave a comment wherever fine podcasts are sold. All those podcasts. One is supposed to say towards the end of the podcast, except for this. Stacy, thank you so much, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right.
Bye.